Is that the sound of boots, or just the flag rope clicking in the wind? The morning light sliced across the drill line, catching dust and golden sparks as laughter slipped between ranks. They mocked his slow steps, snickers soft, then silence pressed back like a door half closed. Still, he didn't answer. The faded service patch slipped from his sleeve, brushed the floor, and for a heartbeat, the hall itself held its breath, light trembling on metal. Quiet men leave echoes too. Anyway, the whistle blew again, and he moved in rhythm, proof stitched quietly into every step he took. The morning light slanted through the open training hall, cutting across a line of recruits. Boots struck the floor in uneven rhythm, the air thick with sweat and polish. At the far end, Ray Donovan, his hair streaked with gray, adjusted his stance as the whistle blew again. Left turn, march. The younger voices echoed sharp, eager. Ray's step landed a half-beat behind. A few snickers slipped through the formation like loose change on concrete. "Careful, old man," one recruit whispered. "Those knees might file for retirement." The others laughed under their breath. Captain Harris caught the sound, but said nothing. The whistle shrieked again. Ray didn't glance their way. He lifted his chin and matched the rhythm, silent, deliberate. His sleeve rode up for a second, revealing a faded service patch edges, frayed color nearly gone. A few recruits noticed. The laughter faltered uncertain. "Straighten the line," Harris barked. "You think this is summer camp?" The echo swallowed every stray sound. Ray's boot hit in perfect time. The moment hung there, humiliation pressed against silence, until the drill ended. He stayed behind when the rest scattered toward the lockers. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, turning the dust into floating sparks. Ray knelt, tied his bootlace, and caught his reflection in the scuffed floor. The scar along his jaw gleamed faintly, a pale thread in the dim light. Rough morning. It was Evelyn, the canteen manager, balancing a mug in each hand. "Could have been smoother," Ray said. She passed him a cup. "Coffee outranks rank anyway." A small smile tugged at his mouth. "Guess it still does." He took a slow sip. The warmth steadied his breath. From the corridor, a recruit's voice drifted. "They said he used to fix radios in some secret unit. Don't know if that's true." Evelyn glanced toward the door, then back to Ray. "Let them talk. Folks remember noise longer than proof." He didn't answer. Just set the cup down and wiped his sleeve across his scar, smearing the thin line of sweat. The laughter faded, but something steady stayed behind. Outside, the flag rope clanked against the pole. Ray stepped into the light. The service patch lay in his palm, the thread soft as memory. He folded it carefully, thumb tracing the old stitching, a quiet motion like folding time itself. The air smelled of fuel and dust, and something faintly metallic, like the inside of a radio. A sparrow fluttered in through the open door, perched on a railing, and watched him go. Behind him, the hall returned to its hollow rhythm. Boots' orders and echoing calls, but he didn't look back. The sunlight drew a thin line along the floor, leading him out of the noise. The workshop behind the old communications shed smelled of oil and dust. A low hum came from the half-dead radio stack on the bench, steady as breathing. Ray Donovan sat beside it, sleeves rolled to the elbow, the scars on his forearm catching the light as he traced a loose wire. Outside, a storm was gathering, small wind first, then the smell of rain over asphalt. The door creaked. "Permission to enter, sir." The voice was young, careful. Cadet Noah Vance, barely 20, stood in the doorway with his cap twisted in his hands. "Door's not locked," Ray said, not looking up. "Depends what you're bringing in, questions or coffee." The kid hesitated. "Mostly questions." Figures. Ray pulled a screwdriver from a tin and leaned closer to the panel. The radio hissed, then fell quiet again. "You fixing that thing?" Trying to, Ray said. "It's like me works when it feels like it." Noah stepped closer. "They say you used to run comms overseas. Black Ops, maybe?" Ray's hand paused over the wire. A short silence filled the space between them. The single bulb above hummed louder, spilling golden dust through the air. "People say a lot," he murmured. "Doesn't mean they're tuned to the right frequency." The radio spat a flicker of signal. Ray adjusted the dial gently, his movements sure. From his pocket, something slipped. A dull dog tag. Edges worn smooth by time. Noah noticed it before Ray did. "Sir, that yours?" Ray picked it up, thumb running over the stamped letters. "No. Buddy of mine's. The tag stays with me till the signal clears." He set it beside the radio metal against metal. Noah leaned on the table. "You ever miss it?" "The work, I mean?" Ray exhaled. Work was simple. The people were loud, but the duty was quiet. The bulb flickered. Shadows pulsed across the tools and cables. "You ever regret staying on base this long?" the cadet asked softly. Ray smiled faintly. "Regret's expensive. I already paid cash." Noah frowned. "I don't follow." Ray glanced at him, eyes steady. "Scars ain't stories, son. They're receipts." The words hung there, half-lit by the trembling bulb. A faint crackle ran through the speaker like static clearing its throat. The kid leaned in. "What's that?" Ray turned the dial again. "Static's not noise," he said. "It's waiting for the right listener." The signal steadied for a breath, then vanished. "Guess it's still waiting," Noah said. Ray smiled. "Then we listen harder." The hum settled back to its rhythm. The storm outside began to tap the tin roof in slow, even beat, soft percussion to a conversation unfinished. Noah straightened, nodding toward the dog tag. "He'd be proud you kept it running." Ray didn't answer. He reached out and covered the tag with his palm, holding it as if tuning a signal only he could hear. Thunder rolled across the base, low and tired, as if the sky itself were testing the wires. The storm had been building since dusk, pushing waves of wind down the narrow corridors. In the radio room, the ceiling lights flickered once, twice, then went black. Only the soft glow of the backup screen remained a heartbeat in blue. "Power grid's down again," someone shouted in the hallway. "Command says stand by." Ray Donovan was already moving. He grabbed a small flashlight and turned to Cadet Noah Vance, who stood in the doorway, holding a clipboard like a shield. "Grab a candle from the shelf, kid." A candle. "We've got generators." "Generators don't hum right in the rain," Ray said. "We'll do this the way it used to be done, by hand and habit." Noah found a stub of wax in a matchbox. "You sure you don't miss modern tech?" Ray struck the match. "Guess analog still saves the day." The joke cracked the tension for a second. The flame caught gold against the storm-dark glass. Shadows danced across the wall, bending like signal waves. They worked in silence for a while, tracing lines from the junction box to the main receiver. Outside, lightning flashed. Inside, the hum of the radio deepened. Ray adjusted the dial, careful fingers steady, even as the building trembled. The room smelled of copper and rain. Each movement felt older than the storm ritual, more than repair. "You ever think about leaving?" Noah asked quietly. Ray didn't answer at first. The flame trembled, painting his scar in fine threads of light. "Left plenty of times," he said finally. "It's the coming back that counts." The radio sputtered, a faint voice half swallowed by static. "Hold, ing, barely." Both men froze. The candlelight flickered. That's Noah started. Old frequency, Ray said. Same channel my unit used. He turned the dial slightly. The static thickened, then cleared just long enough for a whisper of words too faint to catch. Then nothing. What was that? Could be a weather relay bouncing off the hills, Ray said. Or it could be a ghost. Noah raised a brow. You believe in ghosts, sir? Ray leaned back, lips twitching. Only the kind that wear call signs. A gust shook the window. The candle flame bent, then straightened. For a moment, the reflection on the glass turned his scar into a network of glowing lines, like signal paths connecting past and present. Maybe it's just feedback, Noah said. Maybe, Ray answered. But feedback only happens when something remembers what it heard. They stood still, listening to the hum. Somewhere deep in the wires, the static seemed to breathe. The intercom crackled back to life. All personnel main power restoration in 5. Noah exhaled. Guess we'll live another day. Speak for yourself, Ray said, smiling faintly. These systems are older than both of us. He turned off the flashlight, letting the candle do the work. The room warmed a little, just enough to draw the edge off the storm. When the lights returned, the radio flared bright, caught a signal, then faded again. Noah frowned. So we fixed it? Ray tilted his head. Partly. The machine's fine, the signal's stubborn. Like you. Ray chuckled softly. Worse. They watched the dials settle into stillness. The candle melted low, a pool of wax shining on the desk. Noah finally spoke. Why keep listening if it keeps breaking? Ray tapped the side of the receiver. The static stopped, he said, but the silence meant something else. Noah nodded slowly, the line sinking in deeper than the sound itself. The connection wasn't perfect, but it held. The power buzzed again, fluorescent hum filling the gaps. The storm thinned into drizzle. Outside, a distant antenna blinked red through the mist. Ray blew out the candle, the smoke curling upward like a message sent without words. The light lingered on the dial, half lit, half dark, waiting for the next call sign to answer. The base was quiet before dawn, the kind of silence that sits heavy on metal and memory. Mist clung low over the parade field, and the last of the storm puddled in the cracks of the asphalt. Ray Donovan stood beside the flagpole, his uniform pressed and still faintly smelling of solder and rain. The radio grid had come back online an hour earlier, stable and strong. For once, the static was gone. A voice called from behind him. Chief Donovan. It was Captain Harris, his tone formal, carrying none of the mockery that used to color it. He stopped a few feet away, boots crunching on gravel. General wants a word. Ray nodded, following him toward the admin building. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed weakly, fighting the pale light that filtered through the windows. At the end of the corridor, the general's office door stood open. Send him in, a deep voice said. Ray stepped forward. The general sat behind a desk, littered with after-action reports and coffee rings. His silver hair caught the light like wire. Behind him, the American flag hung still, its edge barely stirring with the draft. Chief, the general said quietly, you were the one in the radio room last night. Yes, sir. I read the log. Manual bypass, analog patch. You restored network integrity before command even knew we were blind. Ray said nothing. He stood at ease, hands behind his back eyes, on a distant point beyond the window. The general reached into a small drawer, drew out a silver commendation coin, and turned it in his hand. The metal caught the dawn light, a soft flare that painted the ceiling gold. You've served longer than most, remember, Chief, he said. Some of these kids don't understand what quiet service looks like. But I do. From the corner of the room, Captain Harris shifted uneasily. His earlier bravado dissolved into respect. The general rose, came around the desk and stood in front of Ray. His gaze softened. "You carry a lot of ghosts," he said. "I recognize a few of them." Ray's jaw tightened. "They don't make much noise anymore, sir." The general nodded. "That's the thing about ghosts. The loud ones fade. The quiet ones teach." He turned the coin in his palm again, then pressed it gently into Ray's hand. The cool metal seemed to pulse a symbolic weight rather than a reward. In the silence that followed, the general leaned close, his voice a whisper that barely broke the air. "Black Ops survivor." The words were not a question. They were acknowledgement, recognition carved into breath. For an instant, the hum of the lights disappeared. Ray felt the air compress around him. He was slammed by memory, not by sound. He saw faces fleeting like broken transmissions, the ones who hadn't made it home, the ones whose names were known only to the static. The smell of burned circuitry, the coded voices in his ear, the unmarked night sky over a desert that never forgot. Then the moment passed. He stood again in the general's office, coin in hand, morning light spilling across the floor. Captain Harris stepped forward, uncertain. The general turned to him and gave a slow, deliberate salute, not to the officer beside him, but to the quiet man who had carried the burden without applause. Ray hesitated, then returned the salute with the crisp precision of someone who had practiced humility longer than pride. Outside, the sun finally broke the horizon. The coin caught the light flashing once, like a brief radio signal sent into open air. Ray glanced toward the window. "Sir," he said softly, "the network's stable. I'll run final diagnostics before shift change." "Take your time, Chief," the general replied. "Some things deserve a slower frequency." Ray slipped the coin into his breast pocket, its weight steady against his heart. He turned toward the door, the sound of his boots measured, grounded. As he stepped outside, the dawn wind stirred, lifting the last threads of mist off the field. Somewhere behind him, the radio antenna blinked in the new light. The hum returned, not interference this time, but the quiet rhythm of a system alive again. Some frequencies never fade. They wait to be heard again. The canteen smelled of burnt toast and new coffee, that easy morning perfume only a bass could make. The night storm had washed the air clean, and for once sunlight came in clear through the dusty blinds. The radio on the counter hummed with a low, steady tone, no static, no panic, just music. A young sergeant balanced a tray near the line, heard the old signal carried the anthem again. He said to no one in particular. "Whole base heard it at sunrise. Guess the system finally woke up," another replied. Or maybe someone woke it. At the far table, Ray Donovan stirred his coffee slowly. The spoon clinked once, quiet and even. Around him, voices rippled laughter, soft, not sharp this time. Nobody stared at his scars. Nobody whispered. They just nodded as they passed. From the kitchen door, Evelyn appeared, wiping her hands on a towel. "So," she said with that half smile only she could manage, "you fixed the frequency in their manners." Ray looked up. Didn't think they were tunable. She poured him a refill anyway. Everyone's got a channel. Takes the right ear to find it. He smiled at that, watching the steam rise between them. The sunlight caught it gold in the air. The quiet hum of the radio folded neatly into the moment the sound of order restored. The door creaked open. Noah Vance stood there, uniform still too crisp, letter in hand. "Morning, Chief," he said. "Got something for you." Ray nodded toward the chair across from him. "Sit." Noah slid the folded paper across the table. It's not official. Just thanks. Ray opened it carefully. The handwriting was uneven, but the words clear. Sir, when the static cleared, I realized half the noise was us. I'll listen better. He folded the note again, tucking it into his pocket beside the commendation coin. Appreciate that, kid. Noah hesitated. They're doing a formation outside. You should see this. Ray finished his coffee, set the mug down, and followed him out. The parade ground gleamed wet under the rising sun. Rows of soldiers stood in loose order, not for drill, not for duty, just there. The repaired loudspeakers crackled softly, then began to play a low version of the anthem, clear and clean. No distortion. The same line that had traveled through 1,000 frequencies, now steady again. Harris was there too, cap in hand, eyes on the flag. He gave Ray a small nod. No words, just the gesture that meant more than any apology. Noah stepped to attention beside him. You hear it, he whispered. Ray nodded. Always did. The sound filled the open air, carrying across the base past the hangars over the training field. Evelyn appeared in the doorway of the canteen. Shielding her eyes from the light, her voice carried warm and teasing. You'll make a tradition out of this, won't you? Ray smiled. Not mine to make. Just keeping the signal clear. He stood for a while, hands folded behind his back, eyes on the flagpole. The wind caught the fabric and lifted it gently. The silence that followed the last note wasn't empty. It was full of breath of memory, of understanding shared. He looked toward the flagpole and saw motion, respect, and silence. The radio hum blended with the sound of the morning itself, a frequency of calm the base hadn't heard in years. The Veterans Day morning came soft and gold, the kind of dawn that made even the steel edges of the base look gentle. Rows of folding chairs lined the parade field, dew sparkling on the grass. A choir warmed up near the bandstand, voices rising and falling like a familiar frequency searching for home. Ray Donovan stood near the back, hands clasped loosely behind him. His uniform was plain, his nameplate polished but modest. The commendation coin sat quietly in his pocket, heavier than it looked. He didn't crave the ceremony. He'd come to watch the younger ones stand tall. But someone had other plans. From the small stage, Noah Vance stepped to the microphone, his voice carried with new steadiness. This year he began, "We honor those who kept the signal clear when we lost the sound." Heads turned. Ray felt the weight of attention shift his way, subtle but sure. Noah continued, "Chief Donovan, sir, could you join me up here?" Ray hesitated, then made his slow walk toward the stage. The crowd's murmur dimmed to the rhythm of boots on gravel. The flag above caught the light and moved once, twice, steady and proud. On stage, Noah held out a framed patch, the new insignia for the restored communication division. Beneath the glass thread shimmered red and gold. "We thought you should have the first one," Noah said. "Without you, this symbol wouldn't mean much." Ray took it gently. The reflection of the flag flickered across the frame, across his scar. For a moment he said nothing. Then he reached into his breast pocket and withdrew the old patch edges, frayed colors muted by time. "Then it's only right," he said, "that it goes both ways." He pressed his patch into Noah's hand. The young man froze, eyes bright in the morning light. "It's not about rank," Ray continued. "It's about relay. You keep the line open." Noah nodded, voice low. "I'll listen, sir." The choir began the anthem softer than usual, the notes hovering like breath. Ray looked up at the rising flag, the sunlight catching its folds in silent waves. He felt the cool weight of memories settle not as burden, but as rhythm. The sound of boots, the hum of the radio, The laughter in the canteen, all of it forming a pattern that was never really lost, only waiting to be tuned. He spoke softly, mostly to himself. Scars are just frequencies that survive the noise. The words carried a tidal echo rising above the murmurs. Nearby soldiers straightened as if hearing something they hadn't before. Then he turned slightly, scanning the crowd, until he found Evelyn by the coffee table. She raised a mug in salute. He smiled. Ray picked up the rifle of memory, not a weapon, but a keepsake, the engraved ceremonial piece resting on the stand. He lifted it with care, the motion smooth, reverent. He picked up the rifle of memory, his promise renewed. The wind caught the choir's final note and lifted it high. The flag's shadow brushed across his face, light and dark, moving in rhythm like code. He stood there for a long moment as the anthem faded. Coffee steam rose from nearby cups, drifting upward like invisible radio waves disappearing into the brightening sky. And as the morning settled into stillness, it felt like the world was finally tuned again. Quiet, clear, enduring. If this story moved you, share it forward. The Veterans Day sun lifted slow across the base, catching on the silver patch framed in Noah's hands while Ray stood nearby, his coffee steaming like a quiet signal. The choir's hum drifted through the morning air, blending with the low murmur of boots and folding chairs, a sound of life steadying itself. Still, the proof was simple. Two patches traded between generations, one threadbare, one new, both carrying the same frequency of duty. Ray touched the old edge on his sleeve and smiled, soft and certain. Scars, he said, voice low enough to blend with the anthem, are just frequencies that survive the noise. The flag lifted in a clean gust. Light flickered across his scarred face like a reply. Then the sound faded, leaving only the warmth of the crowd and a clear sky tuned to one frequency, quiet honor.